You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Your environment is a silent architect of your destiny. It shapes your beliefs, your habits, your confidence, and your conversations. It influences your attitude, and eventually, it determines your altitude, whether you soar or settle. Most people never become wealthy, not because they aren't capable, but because they're surrounded by conversations that keep them comfortable with lack. They spend hours around people who major in minor things, people who gossip instead of grow, people who shrink from responsibility and mock ambition. And after enough time, they begin to sound like them, think like them, and live like them. Let me tell you, proximity is power. If you want to change your financial life, you must first change the people who have your ear, the ones who challenge your excuses, the ones who speak in visions, not just in problems, the ones who talk about assets, not just bills, about growth, not just grind. You sit at the table with the wealthy long enough, and something happens. Their mindset rubs off. You start thinking longer term. You start building value. You realize wealth is not a mystery. It's a method. And that method is found in the daily disciplines and decisions of those who've already walked the road. But it takes humility. It takes courage to say, maybe I've been listening to the wrong people. It takes strength to exit the circle that drains you and enter the one that stretches you. Because new rooms often feel uncomfortable. They reveal what you don't know. But that's the point. Comfort keeps you average. Discomfort builds your new standard. Now, you don't have to abandon everyone in your life. That's not the message. But you must prioritize proximity to those who are already living where you want to go. Give your energy to people who make you think bigger, act better, and live with higher intent. Because here's the truth. If 5 people around you are committed to becoming financially free and you're not, just wait. You'll either rise to match them or you'll step away, because you can't stay small in a room that values growth. So choose wisely, because wealth is not just about strategy, it's about environment. And the fastest way to level up your results is to level up your circle. Your circle is either costing you your future or compounding your potential. There is no neutral. And here's how you start. You begin by auditing your circle. Sit down with a journal and ask, who am I around the most? What do they talk about? Do our conversations revolve around solutions or just problems? Are these people investing in their growth or only spending time on entertainment? Do they inspire me to take action or drain my energy with complaints? It's not about judgment. It's about alignment. You wouldn't put diesel fuel in a sports car and expect it to run like a dream. The same goes for your mind and your circle. Once you've identified who uplifts and who depletes, it's time to get intentional. Start scheduling time with people who challenge your thinking. You don't need to wait for chance meetings. Book that lunch with the entrepreneur in your network who intimidates you a little in a good way. Jump on a call with someone who's ahead of you in business, in health, in thinking. Attend meetups, masterminds, seminars. These aren't luxury activities. They are lifelines to your future. I remember attending my first conference with high-level thinkers. I didn't know anyone. I felt out of place, but I took notes. I asked questions. I listened more than I spoke. And little by little, their conversations started rubbing off on me. Not their clothes or their cars, but their language, their focus, their ambition. I began to think bigger, plan smarter, act faster. I realized I had spent years waiting to become successful when I should have been surrounding myself with people who already were. Because you don't rise by chance, you rise by proximity. So if you want to grow, don't just look at your calendar, look at your company. Who you schedule time with is who you are becoming. Choose wisely. You can learn everything you need to know about someone's future by listening to their conversation. Sit quietly for 5 minutes among different circles, and the contrast becomes clear. In some rooms, the talk is always about bills, prices, sales, and what went wrong this week. In others, it's about ideas, strategies, innovation, and contribution. The wealthy don't just talk money, they talk value. And if you want to shift your financial future, you must first shift your financial language. One of the biggest turning points in my life came not from earning more, but from learning differently. I remember the first time I sat in a room of true wealth builders. I expected big talk about cars, watches, jets, but they were discussing systems, service, and scale. One gentleman who ran multiple businesses said, "If you want more money, solve a bigger problem." That one sentence hit me harder than 1,000 motivational speeches. Because while the broke mind asks, "What can I buy if I earn more?" the wealthy mind asks, "What more can I do to deserve more?" When you spend time with wealthy minds, you'll notice they aren't trying to impress you. Can't impress someone who already knows what they're worth. They don't talk endlessly about money as an object. They talk about money as a tool and value as the goal. They'll talk about building a product that helps 1,000 people, about improving a system that saves time, about mentoring someone to multiply impact. They speak in terms of service, contribution, and leverage. And over time, that language starts to reshape the way you think. Not because someone forced you, but because your standards were elevated by the conversation around you. You see, dialogue shapes desire. When you hear people obsess over gadgets, gossip, and grumbling, you'll find yourself slipping into those same patterns. But when you start hearing phrases like, "What's the ROI on that?" or "How can we improve customer experience?" or "Let's test that idea," you can't help but think sharper. Your focus changes. Your questions get better. And better questions lead to better answers and better income. In my early days, I thought the goal was to earn money and then figure out how to spend it. I was wrong. The goal is to understand money so well that you know how to use it to build value, and from that value create freedom. And that starts with shifting your vocabulary. Instead of asking, "What's the price?" start asking, "What's the worth?" Instead of asking, "Can I afford it?" ask, "Will it increase my capacity?" Speak in those terms long enough, and soon you'll find yourself thinking, acting, and earning in alignment with wealth. So when you're choosing who to spend your time with, listen for the language. If they speak in value, vision, and service, you're in the right room, because the mindset always follows the dialogue. Choose conversations that pull you forward. You can often predict someone's financial future by watching how they begin their mornings. That first hour, those first few decisions tell you whether someone is living life on offense or defense. The broke mindset begins each day reacting, scrolling through a phone, checking notifications, worrying about problems. But the wealthy mindset, it begins with intention. It begins with purpose. It begins before the world makes demands. And that's where the separation starts. Now, I'll be honest, this lesson didn't come easy to me. I used to think that discipline belonged only to the big moments, the deals, the decisions, the breakthroughs. But it turns out, discipline lives in the small moments that no one sees, like what you do in the first 30 minutes of your morning. I remember once waking up late, skipping breakfast, rushing out the door, taking calls in a panic can, wondering why the whole day felt like a fire drill. The truth is, I had handed over my steering wheel. I was reacting to the day, not directing it. So I made a change. I began setting my alarm 30 minutes earlier, not for work, not for the commute, but for clarity. I started journaling in the mornings, writing down my goals, not just for the year, but for that day. I wrote what mattered most, what must get done, who I must become to get it done. I stopped opening emails or social media before I opened my notebook. I reviewed my long-term vision and asked, what small action today brings me closer to that future? That's what wealthy people do. They don't stumble into progress, they schedule it. They don't leave priorities to chance, they anchor them in morning rituals. And they don't wait for the world to calm down. Before they focus, they create calm by starting the day focused. Some meditate, some review their finances, some write affirmations. Some simply sit in quiet and listen for answers. But what they all have in common is that they begin on purpose. I've often said, if you don't design your day, someone else will. And they won't design it for your wealth, they'll design it for theirs. So you must take back those opening minutes. Set the tone. Set the tempo. Your phone can wait, your inbox can wait, but your vision cannot. Because if you begin each day reacting to life, you'll keep reacting to bills, problems, and setbacks. But if you begin with intention, you begin with strength. Imagine starting every morning with your internal compass calibrated, knowing where you're headed and why. That's how you move with confidence. That's how you stay aligned with your goals even when life gets noisy. Because the first 30 minutes don't just shape your morning, they shape your momentum. Start them with clarity, and the rest of the day will follow. Time and money, they're more alike than most people realize. Both are limited, both are spent daily, and both determine your future. But while most people have at least heard of budgeting their money, very few have ever thought to budget their time. Yet I'll tell you this, if you don't know where your time goes, you'll always wonder where your results are. I remember a young man coming up to me after a seminar, frustrated with his progress. He said, "I'm doing everything right. I'm working hard, staying busy, but I'm not getting ahead." So I asked him to do a little assignment. For 1 week, I told him, track how you spend every single hour. Not just the work hours, but all of it from the moment you wake up to the moment you sleep. Write it down. No editing, no guessing. Just observe. He came back the next week a bit humbled. He said, "I found time I didn't know I had, and I found out I was wasting more than I realized." That's the power of a time budget. Awareness. Now, once you've tracked your time, the next step is to categorize it. And I like to think of time in 3 categories. First, investment time. This is the gold. This is time spent reading, building a business, creating content, sharpening a skill, expanding your network, anything that pays you dividends in the future. Second, maintenance time. These are your chores, errands, emails, meetings, things that have to get done but don't build wealth directly. Third, waste time. That's the time you spend in front of a screen, scrolling without purpose, watching things that add nothing, or just letting hours slip by in distraction. Just like in financial budgeting, the goal isn't perfection, it's optimization. You don't need to cut out every moment of relaxation, but you do need to recognize patterns. Are you investing enough time in your future? Are you overspending time on tasks that don't move the needle? I once discovered that I was spending 2 hours a day on tasks I could have delegated for $10 an hour while neglecting projects that could bring in thousands. I wasn't being lazy, I was just being unconscious. And that's the trap. Most people lose their wealth not through bad luck, but through unnoticed leakage. The same is true with time. It slips through cracks of distraction and avoidance. But when you budget your hours like you budget your dollars, when you assign time to things that matter, your life begins to align. So here's the challenge. For the next 7 days, treat time like money. Track it, categorize it, and start shifting more of it toward investment. Because where your time goes, your life follows. And if you want a life that compounds in value, you need to spend time like an investor, not a consumer. You know, it's not always the grand decisions that determine whether we live a life of wealth or mediocrity. Sometimes it's the small pockets of time we either reclaim or waste that quietly shape our destiny. We all have it, what I call dead time. Commutes, waiting rooms, lines at the bank, airport terminals, coffee shop delays, or those idle minutes before a meeting begins. And here's the truth. What you do with your dead time will tell me a lot about the trajectory of your life. I remember years ago, before smartphones or podcasts, I would drive across town to a seminar or meeting, and in those moments I made a decision. I said to myself, this car is going to become a rolling university. So I bought cassette tapes, those old things, and I listened to the greats, business thinkers, philosophers, mentors. I couldn't afford in person, but could afford on tape. And over the years, I turned those idle hours behind the wheel into some of the most profitable learning moments of my life. Now, think about how much time we think we don't have. I don't have time to read, someone says, while they spend an hour a day in traffic or scrolling through their phone. I don't have time to grow my mind, they say, while sitting in silence at a coffee shop waiting on someone who's late. You see, the time is there, it's just unclaimed. The wealthy mind reclaims it. The broke mindset squanders it. Let's say you have just 15 minutes of commute each way every day. That's 30 minutes a day. 5 days a week, that's 2.5 hours. Over a month, 10 hours. In a year, that's 120 hours. That's 3 full work weeks. Ask yourself, what could you become if you studied a subject for 3 full weeks a year? What new skill could you master? What mindset could you build? Now, don't just think about driving. Think about the doctor's office, the airport, the laundromat, the quiet time after dinner before bed. You don't have to fill all of it with noise, but you can fill it with value. You could reflect, plan your week, visualize your goals, record ideas into your voice notes, or listen to someone smarter than you. That's the beauty of the world we live in now. You don't need a classroom. You don't even need a desk. You need intention. And that's where the wealthy separate themselves. They don't ask, do I have time? They ask, how can I use this time? And when you start asking that question, even your smallest moments become investments. So here's the shift. Treat your dead time like it's alive. Give it a job. Put it to work. Because if time is the currency of life, then every unclaimed minute is $1 left on the table. Don't let your day slip through the cracks. Fill it intentionally and it will start filling you back. It's easy to get caught in the urgency of the day. The alarm goes off, and before you've even had your coffee, the demands start flying, in calls to return, emails to answer, things to fix, people to meet. Most people live in reaction, but those who build wealth, real lasting wealth, they operate differently. They zoom out. They step back from the canvas and look at the whole picture. And one of the most powerful practices I ever adopted was planning my life by the week, not just by the day. Now, the average person wakes up and plans their day if they plan it at all around what's urgent. But urgency is not the same as importance. And if you only live from what's urgent, you'll stay busy your whole life and still wonder why you never made progress. You see, when you plan weekly, you stop reacting and you start directing. It's like turning from a passenger into the pilot of your own life. I used to take 30 minutes every Sunday evening. No noise, just a notebook, a pen, and a quiet corner. And I'd ask myself 3 things. What must get done this week? What do I want to become better at this week? And what can I set in motion that will compound over time? Not just tasks, but direction. Not just appointments, but outcomes. That's when the shift happened. Instead of letting the week surprise me, I started to surprise the week. I began scheduling not just meetings, but learning time. Not just errands, but strategic thinking. I carved out time for exercise, family, reading, and even reflection. Because the wealthy understand time is a resource, and when you don't assign it, the world will. Planning weekly lets you see patterns. If every week looks the same, maybe you're stuck. If your calendar's full but your goals are empty, maybe it's time for realignment. One client of mine used to say, I don't know where my time goes. After 1 month of weekly planning and review, she looked at her notes and said, now I know why I feel stuck. I'm giving 90% of my week to maintenance and 0% to creation. That awareness changed her life. And here's the key, it's not about planning perfectly. Life will throw curveballs. But when you have a plan for the week, the curveballs don't knock you off course. They just slow you down a bit. You recalibrate, not collapse. The average mind plans reactively. The wealthy mind plans proactively. And wealth in every form, financial, relational, intellectual, is the result of alignment over time. Align your actions today with your vision for tomorrow and do that every week, and you'll start living life by design, not default. So, don't just plan your days like scattered puzzle pieces. Put the whole picture on the table first. That's what weekly planning gives you: the view, the clarity, the control. That's how you live intentionally, not incidentally. Most people spend the majority of their time on tasks that don't change the outcome of their life. They get caught in the weeds of routine, bills, groceries, errands, emails, endlessly repeating actions that can be structured, simplified, or automated. The wealthy, however, make a different choice. They understand that attention is limited and decision fatigue is real. So they protect their mental energy for the things that truly matter: the strategic, the creative, the visionary. They automate the routine so they can focus on the future. Let me tell you what changed for me. There was a point in my life where I was running around all day, always busy but not always productive. I was handling every little detail, myself writing every check, going to every store, organizing every task. It felt responsible at first, but eventually I realized something. I was too involved in what didn't grow me. And if you spend your best energy solving $10 problems, you never make room for $10,000 decisions. That's when I began creating systems. I set up automatic transfers for savings and investing so I didn't have to decide each month whether to be disciplined. I created a rotating meal plan so we didn't waste time deciding what to eat. I outsourced tasks like bookkeeping and delegated errands where possible. Not because I was too good for those things, but because I had to start treating my time like a precious resource. And the result? More clarity, more space, more creative energy. Here's something to remember. Automation isn't laziness, it's leadership. It's choosing to lead your life with intention instead of reacting to it with exhaustion. You automate not to avoid effort, but to reserve your effort for what only you can do, thinking deeply, creating value, connecting with people, solving meaningful problems. It's the same reason high performers often wear the same outfit every day or eat the same breakfast. It's not about being boring. It's about preserving willpower. They've removed low-impact decisions to free space for high-impact thinking. Every decision you don't automate costs you mental bandwidth. And if you spend that bandwidth on what to wear, what to eat, or when to pay the electricity bill, there's not much left when it's time to dream, to strategize, or to build. So start small. Look at your week and identify the things you do repeatedly. Can you systematize them, batch them, delegate them, build templates, set reminders, automate payments, and create routines that run without your input? Then, take that newfound time and invest it in reading and planning and starting that business or learning that new skill. That's what moves the needle. That's what builds wealth. Because here's the truth. You can't do everything. But you can do the essential things, and only if you're not drowning in the non-essential. Free your hands from the routine so your mind can focus on the remarkable. That's how you go from managing a life to designing one. You cannot improve what you do not reflect on. And time, just like money, needs accounting. If you spent $1,000 this week, you'd likely review where it went, whether it earned anything or simply disappeared. Time deserves the same level of scrutiny. Wealthy people understand this. They carve out time before the week, stop, review, and extract the lessons. Not out of guilt, but out of growth. Because wisdom doesn't just arrive, it's drawn out by reflection. Early in my journey, I thought hustle was the answer to everything. More effort, more hours, more activity. And yes, effort matters. But I discovered something along the way motion without direction is just exhaustion. It wasn't until I started sitting down at the end of each week with a pen and journal in hand that I truly began to see progress. I'd ask myself a few simple but powerful questions. What did I accomplish this week that mattered? What distracted me? What habits stole my time? Where did I grow? You see, reflection turns experience into insight. Otherwise, you live the same week 50 times and call it a year. And let me tell you, most people don't have 10 years of experience. They have 1 year repeated 10 times. The wealthy break that cycle. They don't just live, they examine. And in doing so, they accelerate. One insight gained in stillness can save you 10 mistakes in motion. So how do you do it? You block 30 minutes every Friday evening or Sunday afternoon. You treat it like a non-negotiable meeting with your future. You look over your calendar, your goals, your habits. You ask yourself, did I spend more time on creation or consumption? Did I move toward my vision or away from it? Did I let distractions dictate my direction? It's not about shaming, it's about sharpening. And here's the beautiful part. Reflection brings clarity. When you review what didn't work, you stop repeating it. When you identify what worked, you double down. Suddenly, your week isn't just over, it's leveraged. You didn't just live, you learned. And when you show up to the next week, you're not starting from scratch. You're starting from strategy. It's like compound interest, but with insight. Every week you reflect, you grow more precise, you waste less, you invest better. And over time, that awareness becomes your advantage. While others run in circles, you move with direction. I once mentored a young man who worked harder than anyone I knew, but he was always busy and never wealthy. I asked him, "Do you take time to think?" He said, "No, I don't have time for that." I said, "That's why you're broke. You're spending all your time doing and none reviewing." He started reflecting weekly, and within a year, he wasn't just working, he was winning. So remember, it's not just how you spend your time, it's what you learn from how you spent it. Make reflection your ritual. Turn time spent into wisdom earned.